Hey, it's been a while, hasn't it? There have been some major changes since my last upload, the biggest of which being I am clearly not in Shanghai anymore. I'm actually currently in Berkeley, California, attending UC Berkeley, and it's been a crazy few months. There have been many ups and many downs, and often I kind of find myself caught up in the whirlwind of life, and I really do find myself asking, why the fuck am I here? You know, someone once told me that your life is a movie and that everything is just part of the plot. And I'm not really sure why that has stuck with me for so long, but thanks to them, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. So this is my new web series. It's gonna be a whole lot different than my past uploads, and it's gonna be called hobbledehoy, which means a young adult that is in a perpetual state of uncertainty, which is exactly what I am, and I'm assuming exactly what a lot of you are. Join me as I film life raw and unfiltered. And perhaps you can be inspired by your fellow hobbledehoy, because you're not alone, and life, though tiring and grueling, is not something that we are meant to experience and endure on our own. In fact, you might actually find comfort in the fact that I have no fucking clue what I'm doing. At all. But before we get ahead of ourselves, I'm just gonna do a quick rundown on what has happened so far. I left Shanghai July 17th, 2021. To say that it was tough would be quite the understatement. Shanghai was virtually the only home I had ever known. And to be leaving my friends and my family and my way of life just like that after living there for 14 years was absolutely soul-crushing. I remember walking through the departure gate and just sobbing my eyes out because with China's 21-day quarantine policy, I honestly didn't know when the next time I would see any of them would be. But one thing was for certain, I was convinced and determined that this new chapter in my life was gonna be a good one and that things were gonna get easier. You know. Yeah, about that. Life never truly really gets easier, and that's something that I had to learn the hard way. But it's actually the skills and capabilities that we learn along the way from our experiences that makes life fun and worth living. And honestly, and you could call me biased, but honestly, I think young people should be cut some slack. You know, we are thrown challenges that we are old enough to face, but not quite mature enough to deal with effectively. So how can life not be disorienting for us? And how can it not be unbearable at times? And now look at me. I left my comfortable home of Shanghai, China 4 months ago, and I went through things that I was never prepared for, and somehow I'm still here. 18, sad, confused, and yet better than I was before. I guess the purpose of this series and the moral of the story is that it's just that life is weird and unsettling and exciting, but also dreadful at times. And assuming you already knew that, our struggles are thus the same. Perhaps context differs, but what we think and feel as a result of the challenges we face are all shared and thus valid. You are not alone whatsoever. And perhaps through sharing my experience, you guys can not only feel heard and understood, but also perhaps learn something on what to do or what not to do when faced with certain challenges. And even though the past few months have been grueling and painful, to say the least, I can proudly say that I came out of all of that stronger, better, and more self-aware than I was before. I do want to preface as a bit of a side note that I am by no means all good now. I'm still actively struggling, and I'm still going through quite a plethora of things that I will be covering in the episodes. But I can also say with a good amount of confidence that I am a lot better than I was before. And I'm really excited to be sharing a lot of this with you guys. So on that note, I am a hobbledehoy. Goodbye. Sponsored by McDonald's. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's a joke. Okay. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let me do a really quick rundown. My chair is so freaking squeaky. So on that note, that's a bug.